Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving straight into something really critical. It's about India's decision to suspend the Indus Waters Treaty of 1960 with Pakistan.
A huge development, and definitely something for, those of you prepping for UPSC exams to watch closely.
Exactly. It touches on international relations, water security, the whole India-Pakistan dynamic. Really important for mains and maybe even prelims, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. And the timing, well, it seems directly linked to that awful terror attack in Pahalgam.
Yes, the attack that killed at least 26 people. That seems to be the immediate catalyst here.
It does. A truly shocking event, triggering this unprecedented move regarding the treaty.
So our mission today on this deep dive is to really unpack this for you. We want to look at the history, the reasons India's given, what it could mean for both countries, and the legal stuff too.
Which is quite complex, actually.
Right. We want to give you a solid understanding, something that goes, deeper than just the headlines.
And for this, we're looking at some detailed reporting, primarily from the Indian Express and the Economic Times. They've done some good analysis.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. The Indus Waters Treaty, or IWT, 1960, what did it actually establish?
Well, fundamentally, it divided the rivers of the Indus system. India got control over the three eastern rivers, Ravi, Beas, and Sutlej.
Okay.
And Pakistan got control over the three western rivers, the Indus itself, the Jhelum, and the Chenab.
And the amazing thing is how long it's lasted, right?
Yeah.
It survived wars, major tensions.
It really has. Multiple wars, numerous crises. It was never suspended before. Not even after the Uri attack in 2016, when there was, a lot of pressure to reconsider things.
Which just highlights how significant this current suspension is. Never happened before.
Precisely. It underlines the gravity of the situation now.
So India didn't just suddenly suspend it, right? There were steps leading up to this.
That's right. India has been signaling some dissatisfaction for a while. Back in January 2023, they sent Pakistan a notice asking for a modification of the treaty.
Modification, okay.
Then, in September 2023, another notice came. This one called for a review and modification.
Which sounds a bit stronger.
Many analysts saw that second notice as a clear step, maybe towards revocation or at least a major renegotiation.
And what reasons has India actually given for wanting to reassess this treaty after all these years?
They've mentioned a few things. One is this idea of fundamental and unforeseen changes in circumstances, a bit broad, perhaps. But they also pointed to more specific things, changing demographics in the region, growing environmental challenges.
Like climate change impacting water flows.
Potentially, yes. Also, India's own needs for clean energy, meeting global emission goals. And then there's the really direct link, continued cross-border terrorism from Pakistan that's explicitly tied to this suspension.
And these hydroelectric projects, Kishanganga, Rattle, they keep coming up. What's the core issue there?
Yeah, that's been a constant friction point. Pakistan objects to the design of these Indian projects. Kishanga is on the Kishanga River, Rattle's on the Chenab.
Both western rivers, under Pakistan's control, according to the treaty.
Well, Pakistan has control over the use of the water, but the rivers flow through Indian territory first. India is allowed to build run-of-the-river projects under the treaty with certain technical limits.
I see.
Pakistan isn't saying these projects stop the water flow entirely. Their argument is that the specific designs violate the technical rules laid out in the IWT's annexures.
Got it. And just to be crystal clear, this suspension, putting the treaty on hold, completely unprecedented by India.
Absolutely. First time ever. Decades of tension. But the treaty itself was always considered, sacrosanct until now.
Okay, let's talk legal frameworks. This is key for our UPSC listeners. What are the critical legal points about the IWT itself?
The big one, really, is that the treaty doesn't have an exit clause. Neither side can just unilaterally pull out or terminate it.
So it's meant to be permanent.
Perpetual is the term used. Any changes, any modifications require mutual agreement. Both India and Pakistan have to agree.
Okay, and what if they disagree? Like with these hydro projects, is there a mechanism?
Yes, there is. The treaty sets up a three-step process. First, the Permanent Indus Commission, with officials from both sides, tries to sort it out.
Right.
If that fails, it can go to a neutral expert for a technical ruling. And if that still doesn't resolve it, the final step is a formal court of arbitration. It's all laid out in Article 9X in the annexures.
But wait, if India has suspended the treaty, do those mechanisms even work anymore? Can Pakistan still use them? So what can Pakistan do legally if the treaty is suspended? Can they go to, say, the International Court of Justice?
That's tricky. The treaty itself doesn't say how to revive it if suspended. And regarding the ICJ, India has a specific reservation.
A reservation?
Yes. India doesn't accept the ICJ's jurisdiction for disputes arising from water treaties like the IWT, so Pakistan can't just take India to the ICJ over this.
Wow. So if India steps outside the treaty by suspending it, but Pakistan might not have a clear, peaceful, legal path to force India back into compliance.
It appears quite limited, yes. Outside the treaty framework, the options become much more difficult and, frankly, more political than legal.
Okay, let's flip this around. What does suspending the treaty mean for India? What strategic options does it open up?
It gives India significantly more freedom of action, especially regarding those western rivers, Indus, Jhelum, Chenab.
How so?
Well, for one, India could potentially stop sharing water flow data with Pakistan. That data sharing is part of the treaty, important for things like flood warnings in Pakistan.
Okay. What else?
And those hydroelectric projects we talked about, India would be free from the treaty's specific design constraints. They could potentially modify existing ones or build new ones differently.
Does it open up possibilities for, say, storing more water from those rivers?
That's a big one. The treaty limited the storage India could build on the western rivers. Suspending it, theoretically, removes those limits. So new storage reservoirs could be considered.
And things like managing the dams better.
Yes, potentially. Things like reservoir flushing, clearing out sediment to make dams last longer, like at Kishanga, might become easier without treaty constraints. Also, India could potentially deny Pakistani officials access for inspections, which the treaty allowed.
But hang on, you said potentially, theoretically. Can India just turn off the taps tomorrow?
No, that's a crucial point. While the legal constraints might be lifted, the physical ones remain. India currently doesn't have the massive infrastructure. The large dams, the huge canals needed to suddenly divert or stop a significant amount of water from flowing downstream to Pakistan from the western rivers.
So the strategic option is there, but the immediate practical ability to, say, drastically reduce flow is limited by current infrastructure.
Exactly. Building that kind of infrastructure would take years, maybe decades, and huge investment. So the immediate impact on water flow might be limited even if the legal posture has shifted dramatically.
Okay, now for the other side, Pakistan. You used the word devastating earlier. Why is the Indus system so vital for them?
It's almost impossible to overstate. About 80% of Pakistan's entire cultivated land relies on water from the Indus system. That's around 16 million hectares.
80%.
Yes. And of that water, 93% goes to irrigation. Agriculture is the backbone of their economy. Think about the population, too. Over 237 million people live in the Indus Basin. And Pakistan accounts for, 61% of that basin area?
So we're talking food security, livelihoods for millions.
Absolutely. And potential social instability, too, right? If agriculture collapses, massive migration to cities, straining resources, UPSC aspirants should definitely factor that into regional stability analysis.
And it's not just farms, is it? What about cities? Power?
No, not just farms. Major cities, Karachi, Lahore, Multan depend heavily on Indus water for daily needs, industry, and they're big hydropower plants. Tarbela, Mangala, they need those consistent river flows to generate electricity. It hits energy security, too.
What's the overall economic picture? How much does the Indus contribute?
Economically, it's huge. The Indus system underpins something like nearly 25% of Pakistan's entire GDP. Wheat, rice, sugarcane, cotton, vital crops depend on it.
And all this is happening in a country already facing water problems.
Exactly. Pakistan is already one of the world's most water-stressed countries. Their water availability per person has been dropping fast. So any reduction or even just increased uncertainty about Indus water flows, it hits an already vulnerable system. It can mean severe shortages, economic hardship, or real crisis.
Okay, so let's try and pull this together. We've seen India suspend the IWT, an unprecedented step. Seems driven by the Pahalgam attack, but also builds on existing issues over hydro projects and a desire to modify the treaty.
Right. And the consequences are potentially huge. Yeah. For Pakistan, it's potentially devastating, given their dependence on the Indus. For India, it opens up strategic options, though immediate large-scale changes to water flow are unlikely due to infrastructure limits.
And for you, our listeners focused on the UPSC exams, understanding this whole picture, the history, the tricky legal points about suspension versus termination, the massive implications for both countries, for regional stability, for water management. It's absolutely critical.
Definitely. It touches on so many syllabus areas.
So that leaves us with a final thought, perhaps. Given that the treaty was meant to be perpetual and there's no clear way back if it's suspended indefinitely, what happens next? What long-term strategies do India and Pakistan even need to think about for the Indus if the IWT framework is effectively gone?
That is the crucial question moving forward, isn't it? What does a future without the IWT governing the Indus look like? It's complex and, frankly, quite uncertain.
We really hope this deep dive has helped you get a clearer handle on this very critical and evolving issue. If you have more questions or want to explore any part further, please do leave a comment below.
Yes, we'd love to hear your thoughts.
And don't forget to like this discussion and subscribe for more deep dives into topics relevant to your preparation, drawing on sources like the Indian Express and the Economic Times. Thanks for joining us.